What is up, Steeler fans? Welcome back to another episode of The Hangover. I'm your host, Daniel. Alongside with me is always Shannon White. Shannon, it's not a victory Monday. It's a defeated Monday. How are you doing? It's been a couple of days. I think we've all gotten a chance to reflect a little bit. How are you feeling now after the loss?
Not much better. Me and my wife had plans to get out of town for a little getaway for the weekend.
Yeah.
And so I was really looking forward to everything. And I said, get a Steelers victory and then we go away for the weekend. It's just going to be great. And all that went to crap as far as the game. And then the discussions I had with tons of people after the game.
Yeah.
And even Friday morning before we left. And it was atrocious. It was when you lose, it brings out the worst in a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of trying to tell the truth about a lot of things, then you have people that will attack you and forget everything you've ever said or did. Been doing this for a long time, Daniel.
Yeah.
And over the course of 24 hours, I was called everything from a racist to a fake fan to if you're going to do this kind of thing, you got to expect some of that.
Right.
But I will never be dishonest. I respect our community too much, and I'll tell the truth. I don't care who likes it or who don't. Right. And people are either going to recognize and know me and judge me by who I am 99% of the time. And if they, if not, they can believe whatever they want to believe. But we're not paid by the Steelers. We're not paid by anybody that much, to be honest. So I'm just going to be honest, and hopefully people can respect me like I respect them. So.
Yeah, 100%, man. I'm sorry you had those type of discussions. I was so disappointed, man. I turned it off. I turned it away. I was disgusted. I was all of the above. To me, just kind of seeing, and as the title of the show goes, wrong answers to the test. Mike Tomlin, one of his Tomlinisms, or one of the things I've heard him say multiple times, is that it is his job to give the team, the players, the answers to the test. And not only was he unable to give them the right answers before the game, but throughout the game. And it felt like, I don't, it is what it is. Tomlin has these certain type of games that he struggles against. Mm-hmm. And I've been talking about him all season, that the first beginning part of the season was concerning to me. One of the biggest one of the biggest things that I've seen, or trend that I've seen when it comes to Tomlin, is when there's a new quarterback that's not a rookie in their first or second, game as in that team. Yeah. I was concerned about Justin Fields because he was a player who was with a new team. I was concerned about Sam Darnold. I was concerned about Carson Wentz. I was concerned about even Joe Flacco, because all of these guys, all these guys were, and I've been talking about it for weeks. In fact, I had kind of called before the season started, that the Steelers were going to lose to Seattle because of this. I had said, hey, Tomlin, whenever there's a new quarterback, whether it's in the middle of the game or it's a new quarterback, either this is their first or second game outside of rookies, he was playing against the rookies. His record's pretty good. But outside of rookies, the team struggles. They struggle to adapt. They struggle to do much. And I mean, I think over half of Joe Flacco's targets, or about half, were to Jamar Chase.
Over half.
How do you not adjust to that?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny. Let's look at who they beat this year. They beat Justin Fields barely. They beat Gabriel, the rookie from the Browns.
Yeah.
They beat May from New England, but they turned the ball over 5 times, and they barely beat them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they beat Minnesota with
Wentz.
Wentz. Yeah, and Wentz hasn't really done anything for a long time. And that was a game that they about outcoached themselves at the end and lost that. they've lost to Darnold, and then they lost to Joe Flacco, who, and if you remember, I said I hated that trade. I'd rather play Brownie.
Yeah.
The very reason you're talking about. Flacco is a Steeler killer. He's a Tomlin killer. Now he's 12-11 in his career, or whatever, against them. And very few quarterbacks can say that outside of Tom Brady, of course, who dominated. But it's just, it's more of the same, Daniel. I mean, I'm just like, after the Cleveland game, I said there was no excuses because you're playing weakened teams right now. These teams are the weakened teams. Now your schedule gets tougher. And the part that upsets me is we're seeing progress on offense.
Yeah.
And I want to brag on these guys. I want to acknowledge that. But the defense, which I was told the other day that I'm wrong, that the Steelers have the second highest paid defense. I don't remember. I think maybe the Texans have the most. I can't. Somebody pays their guys a little more. I don't know. But regardless, they were lousy. They were atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
There is no legacy Steelers on defense. I'm tired of making up lies and like, oh yeah, TJ Watt's incredible and Cam Hayward's incredible and all this. You got to do something in the postseason. Now, what did that game look like? For the Bengals, it was their postseason. Because if they went down and they went to 1-5, they would have had a tough time without Burrow climbing back into the race.
Right.
It'd be 2-5. And so that was a playoff atmosphere. It was a whiteout. Now, when have you seen the Steelers play in Cincinnati? They didn't have half the stadium.
Right. No, I don't disagree with you there. That's 100%.
Playoff atmosphere.
Yeah, 100%.
And what happens when it's a playoff atmosphere under Mike Tomlin? They don't show up. Yeah. TJ Watt was invisible. So right there then, and he got a half sack, I think, with Hayward or whatever, who also was invisible. Nobody showed up in the secondary. And they had no answers. And they kept saying, well, they changed it. They changed this scheme. They went to that scheme, and they tried. It doesn't matter. The intensity was all on Cincinnati's side. Even though they didn't have their best defensive player, the best offensive player, all kind of guys coming in and out, they were playing like their lives depended on it, and the Steelers didn't even show up. And that is the common denominator under Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin inherited players that were legacy Steelers, that were winners. And they had won before Tomlin, and they won after Tomlin till they got old. And then it was his guys coming in, his draft picks, his players that he had to develop, and there hasn't been a legacy Steelers since. Because nobody shows up in the playoff type big game atmosphere. That game was huge to set the Steelers up moving forward this season, and they laid an egg.
I don't disagree with you there. I don't disagree with you there. But I think, kind of going back to the title being the wrong answers, I think maybe perhaps it's not so much that they got the wrong answers. I think it's maybe Joe Flacco had all the answers. Tomlin's refusal to change and going up against a quarterback that has seen Mike Tomlin's defense for many, many years is a situation I think that didn't work in the Steelers' favor, obviously. And it allowed for a guy that couldn't get out of his own backfield to have a pretty big game on the ground in Chase Brown, over 100 yards rushing. I think you're right. You look at the offense, and you mentioned earlier, but some of the games that happened earlier and how the Steelers squeaked away. The offense wasn't humming quite yet, but now that they are, you're right. I mean, the defense is just not holding up their own, and it's not just this game. I know a lot of people are going to try to say, "Hey, well, it was a short week. It was Thursday, this, that, and a third." I get it, but it was a short week for them too. And the Steelers had a bye the week before that. I mean, they just finished playing against Cleveland, but they had a bye before that. And it's not like this is the only quarterback that's put up numbers like this throughout the entire season. This has happened completely, over and over again. An inability to get off of third downs. I think the Steelers are out the plays. They're getting outplayed. I think it was like against Cincinnati, it was like 70 plays to 50 plays, somewhere around there. And that's been the common trend. And if the offense of the other team is playing that many or having that many plays on the field, that is a symptom of your team not being able to get off on third downs. It is what it is. They're constantly having to stay on the field and having drives continually go on against them. And I don't see them adjusting anytime soon. What do you? I know, we can look at Tomlin games and say, hey, that he's done bad during some of these games, but on a little bit of a mini bye at home, he's done good. Do you think they can turn it around?
I have no idea. They'll win enough games probably to not have a losing record, and everybody will just sing the praises and going to the Hall of Fame but I don't know any other sport that you could keep putting this product out there and have these type of losses. And I was told that the coaches don't matter. Basically, for the biggest Tomlin supporters, I was told the coaches don't matter, that the players play the game.
Right.
So then why have a CEO? Why have a manager? Why have a head coach in the first place? If they don't matter and nothing matters, scheme don't matter, it all matters. Now, you have to have the studs, you have to have the talent, but you also have to have the coaches that can get them in position to be successful, to put them in the proper schemes, to be able to make the adjustments. You have to have the front office that if these players ain't smart enough to make the adjustments that is required by the offensive defensive coordinators, you have to get new players. You have to make the right decisions who you extend and how much money you pay them. Because, it's if you're paying 3 or 4 guys, 30-40% of your salary cap, they better perform. They better be worthy of that those paydays. And any other place I've ever been in any walk of life, whether it's athletics, the business, anything, the head guy has to take that responsibility. And then, that's when ownership or whoever steps in and says, okay, we're going to make these adjustments and you're going to deal with it as the lead guy, or you're next. And so the Steelers, they made a decision this offseason that it was a lack of talent, not a lack of coaching and schematics. But we're seeing the same thing. Now, we have seen some improvement on offense. They got a competent quarterback and, brought in Metcalf and seeing some of the young guys gel on the offensive line now that they're actually getting to play together. But now just like what happened in the past, the Steelers were all defense till the Killer Bees came along. Then they had the Killer Bees, then they had no defense. And now they had the defense and they had, Kenny Pickett and Matt Canada. They didn't have any offense. Now they got offense, and guess what they don't got now? Defense. So come on, guys. I mean, somewhere along the line, there's a common denominator, and we got to figure out what it is.
I would say they got an offense loosely. Not yet. It's
getting there.
Yeah, I wouldn't go there yet, but I will say that they did look impressive against the Cincinnati Bengals. But the offense of the Pittsburgh Steelers with Kenny Pickett and everybody else that you mentioned has looked impressive against the Cincinnati Bengal defense. I still take it. You can only play who you can put in front of you. The offensive line looked a lot more improved. I know the big sack or the big hit on Aaron Rodgers from Broderick Jones was the biggest debate. I thought that was funny. I'm not gonna lie.
We've all had that guy. I mean, if anybody's been in, let's say, competitive sports, combat sports especially, you have the one guy you don't want to spar with. Because you say, okay, we're a team, we're in training, we're in, the gym, you're going 75, right? Keep it kind of loose. We're getting our work in, but keep it, and you always have that overzealous guy that ends up hurting somebody because he gets too enthusiastic. And that's all I can think of when I see Broderick Jones hit Aaron Rodgers. That was the worst hit of the night for Aaron Rodgers. And it covered his own guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Aaron was pretty upset about it. They talked to Broderick earlier. I think it was today. And he said that, if he throws another touchdown, he might tackle him again. He said
Yeah.
he said he was a little mad. Faltanu said that, we watched the tape and it didn't really go down the way Broderick said it went down. And so whatever that means, take that for what it is. Claude Bishop comes in with $2 saying, what percentage of that loss was on Tomlin? What would you say to that answer?
Again, I mean, what what impact do you feel that a head coach has on a game? Every time, like I said, there's a playoff like atmosphere. The other team is fired up to play the Steelers, and they come out super intense. The fan base is crazy. And what do the Steelers do? They go in their shell. They come out flat. They're never prepared. And to me, that a percentage of that has to go on the head coach. You have to have your team ready. Whatever you got to do, and put in some new plays. I'm watching was watching the Monday Night Football game before we come on, and you see some creativity. You see different route combinations and different play calls, and you can tell the players are enthusiastic and excited about doing something different.
Right.
I thought that game was not on the offense at all because the defense just didn't show up. But even the offense, they were running the ball after the initial throwing it to try to set up the run, which I figured. But then they figured out, we can run the ball on this team. And Warren and Gamble, they was really running well. And the offensive line was blocking really well. And then we're going to try a flea flicker, or it wasn't a flea flicker. Nobody will agree on what it was. Tomlin says one thing, Rodgers says another.
What did Tomlin say it was?
Huh?
What did Tomlin say it was?
Now I can't remember. I know he disagreed with Rodgers. I can't remember who said it was and who said it wasn't. But anyway, somebody said they checked out of it, and everybody got the memo but Warren. But regardless, why do that at that point? You can set that up for a little later, but that was a big momentum shift. The interception, the one I don't even know if it was an interception. I've seen the replays, and I've heard all the excuses why it was or wasn't. But the one he definitely threw into double coverage. But again, they should have dominated that game if they would have just stayed on course and had any kind of defense. But it was just like, since he gets the ball, they score. Get the ball, they score. And they would not double team Chase. Even if they'd give up big plays to anybody else. Make somebody else get it and do something. There's no way one guy should get 23 targets.
He could have had more. He should have had more.
Yeah, he dropped 3.
Well, he should have had more target. He was open so badly.
Yeah.
On so many plays. They could have thrown it to him 6 or 7 times more, and he probably could have had those completions. It was insane.
It was slant, penalty, slant, penalty. Yeah. That was 6 plays in a row. It was completions or penalty. Yeah. I mean, it's like, okay, can you do something different? Try something.
I don't disagree with you. For me, what percentage was it on Tomlin? So to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, or the supporter here for Tomlin, visiting teams in general have struggled on the road on Thursday night. I mean, in divisional games as well. The Eagles have just recently lost to the Giants. And, although the Giants do look kind of like a different team with Jackson Dart there.
They do, yeah.
I would not have expected, I don't think many people did expect for the Giants to be the victorious in that game and to play as they did. So, I say, you put something there on the head coach. You got to have the team, the players prepared, more so for the adjustments. I mean, it was just ridiculous that they didn't adjust. I mean, if you had to, swallow your pride and put 2 guys on him, like side by side, do something. That's the only person they were throwing the ball to for the most part. And so
it wasn't just Chase, as you said earlier.
Yeah.
And I see Mark Tobin just said, Chase Brown has been like one of the least effective running backs in the NFL. He had 100% some yards. He had 80 some and a half, I think.
It's true.
And then it was Chase was so open that they couldn't not throw it to him. So they even went away from the running game because it was just so open. And but Higgins had a big game. Anybody Flacco threw to had a big game. And it's because how many times are we going to say this? How many times are we going to talk about a Tomlin trap game and then it happens? But never hold the man accountable ever. And I see somebody make a comment about, well, we know what the common denominator is, but it's not a race thing. It's not. It's the truth. I don't care who it is. So, somebody told me, they said, I don't remember him wanting Kyer. Yeah, they did. They wanted Kyer's head.
Oh, yeah. When 6-10.
He couldn't win the Super Bowl. He couldn't get past the AFC Championship game. He loved Cordell Stewart too much and wouldn't take him out when he should have replaced him. I mean, I was around. I remember all that. There wasn't social media back then, but that's all you heard about. But now it's like, oh, no, it's because of Tomlin. They want him gone because of the race. It's not.
No,
I mean, you will be beloved in Pittsburgh if you win.
100%.
If you win the right way and you build, and you say, well, they do win. Yeah, 9-8 or 10-7. That ain't what I'm talking about. I'm talking about win in the playoffs, win Super Bowl. Because it's just a higher standard. But now the standard's shot. Now the standard's one game better than 500.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, man. You know, it's I've been frustrated with a bunch of this stuff, and you know, we talked a little bit about like player personnel and coaching staff and stuff like that. You know, some people point at the GM, but I think Tomlin has a big role into who they decide. I think the general manager has a role in how much they get paid. You know, and they probably do have a word into certain things, but I mean, didn't Tomlin say maybe it was for Flores that he just went upstairs, told Rooney, and he said, "Yeah, get your guy," or whatever the case was.
Yeah,
you know, so he has a lot of say in player personnel and how this team is built. And so when people say that, well, you know, he's done more with players, you know, the players around him. And, you know, you look at the quarterback position and stuff like that. Well, he kind of built those players. He's the one that drafted and trained them. He's the one that, you know, was there to, you know, with the decision on signing Mitch Trubisky and drafting Kenny Pickett and numerous of things. So, you know, he's got Rodgers now. Rodgers looked okay. He looked good, actually. I'm going to say he looked good. He's looking more comfortable out there. The offensive line seemed like they were blocking better. You know, he ended up throwing that Hail Mary at the end of the game, and apparently that was the I think the longest air yard pass in the NFL this season so far.
No, since 2017, I think it was.
Oh yeah, you're right.
It was. Now, see, I'm not sure about that. I remember Baker Mayfield threw a Hail Mary at the end of the game when he was with Cleveland, and if I remember correctly, it went longer. But they said no. I think Rodgers traveled estimated 69 air yards.
Yeah.
But I could have sworn Mayfield threw it further at the end of a Cleveland game. But I could be wrong. But needless to say, he's 41 years old, and he's still got a good arm.
Yeah. The guy can still sling it, you know. And I think some of the other issues that we were seeing earlier on in the season was probably a little bit of lack of confidence in the offensive line, and rightfully so. He was getting kind of beat up a little bit. You know, it was another game where we saw a lot of Darnell Washington out there. I think that's going to be, you know, what is it, a pattern, a trend? I think that's going to be the staple point at this point with Darnell
But look
out
at
there.
Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to give credit where credit's due. I was like, man, you know, if you could include him in a trade, and because, you know, they're not going to use him. And my gosh, I mean, he still can't block to save his life. But man, he really looked solid on about 3 or 4 pass routes and receptions. I thought that he gave him that, you know, shot in the arm and was able to actually work down the field past 20 yards to get him some more explosiveness in somebody besides Metcalf, who the Bengals, you know, doubled to get bet and took away. But I'll give credit where credit's due. That was Pat Fryer's maybe best game ever.
Yeah, he played fairly well, and he got the big score at the end. Did you think he should have gone down, or were you
No,
thinking he should have scored at that point?
you have to. You have to. There's
I
no
agree.
guarantee you could have a fumble. I mean, because they had to have a touchdown. It wasn't like if you had to have a field goal. See, Higgins knew they just needed a field goal. That made sense. And no, Fryer had to score. And because there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to power it in from the 2 or the 3. You know what I mean? That falls on the defense yet again. And like Patrick Queen said after the game, they didn't do anything to slow the Bengals down the whole game.
Yeah.
But they could have made up for that sorry game had they stopped them on that last drive. And they couldn't even do it then. And twice left Chase wide open. And then, of course, give the big pass to Higgins. So it was just a complete and utter failure of the defense that whole game.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. Last question before the break. Where was your confidence level when Pat Fryermuth scored that touchdown with a little over 2 minutes left on the clock?
10%.
Bengals down. Huh?
10%. I had not seen anything leading up to that point that the defense was be able to do anything.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, I try to, we try to encourage ourselves. And I'm like, well, TJ Watt, he's making all this money. Cam Hayward, man, he held out, wanted a little more money, and he got his money. And these guys, it's all about legacy. Right. And then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, but what's the legacy? Disappearing into playoff atmospheres and the big games? Then I got really nervous, and it was right.
Yeah. Now, for me, it was bittersweet. They scored the touchdown. I was like, yeah, man, there's so much time left.
Exactly.
It was the least celebrated touchdown that I had.
I wanted to be happy. I really did.
Yeah, I did too. I was just so dang nervous, and rightfully so. And they just moved the ball at will. Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll talk a little bit more about the game, and then we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming matchup against the Green Bay Packers. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a few words from our sponsors. What is up, Steeler fans? Welcome back to the Hangover. I'm Daniel, and with me, as always, Shannon White. Before we get back into the conversation, I want to remind you guys of our website, SteelCurrentNetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. Go check it out once you're done listening to this podcast, and while you're there, you can listen to our audio-only podcast, which include mine, State of the Steelers, that airs out on Saturdays. If you want to hear me rant, you'll hear me rant on this last Saturday on State of the Steelers. So go check it out. Check it out wherever you find your podcast, or go to the website, SteelCurrentNetwork.com. So, yeah, kind of transitioning into the defensive side of things, this secondary has been ranked one of the worst, although they've had, Jalen Ramsey, who did have probably not his best game as a Pittsburgh Steeler this past week. I don't want to blame, when there's that much of a, when you're ranked that low and you're giving up that many yards, as a whole, they all should take blame, don't you think?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, it was a complete failure all the way around.
Yeah.
I don't think that the defensive line impressed me at all. Benton was still getting blown off the ball. They didn't put him out there at nose as much, but every time they did, he got blown off the ball.
Right.
I run right at him.
Right.
And that's just, it drives you crazy. Because I didn't even see quality very often at all. And he's giving him quality minutes.
Yeah.
And he can play the nose, something that Benton is capable of doing. But Benton got the sack early, and I think that made everybody think, oh, we got to put, Benton in there, give him his minutes. he's going to have a big game. But if you notice, if he makes a big play, it's early in the half. It's early in the game or it's early in the second half. And then his moves become, and he don't do anything else. I don't know if he maybe even get winded because as the game goes on, he disappears even worse. But I didn't think Cam showed up. I didn't think anybody showed up on defense. I'll be honest. Now I know Elliott was going through a lot.
Yeah.
And he did his best. He tried to show up, but where his focus was in his mind, I don't know. But even the guys that it's been the underappreciated guys or the under the radar types like Eccles, he didn't really do anything. Nobody really stepped up other than Clark had a couple of big hits in a row.
Yeah.
But other than that, I didn't see any intensity on defense at all. And it was just to get run on like that by that offensive line, and they didn't even have their best guys out there. And they've been bad when they did. So that just shows you how pitiful an effort that was.
Yeah, it was pretty sad. I couldn't understand it. I was like, this team was doing pretty good against the run against other teams. This team should be a team that should not be running the ball. But I think that there's the effect that you have when you're able to move the ball through the air and you're trying to stop that. And it's just sad because it didn't matter what it was though. And it was frustrating. I shouldn't word sad. It was frustrating and it was upsetting that regardless if it was throwing the ball or running it, it was effective for the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, they scored on I think almost every the last 6 possessions or so, and it was crazy. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And Terrell Austin, what was his role before he became the defensive coordinator?
He was a secondaries coach.
And so for the defensive coordinator to have a secondary that is playing this bad, and that was his specialty.
Yep.
I mean, at what point maybe you start thinking about that type of change?
But again, this goes back to what I've been saying. Tomlin gets guys. He gets guys that he can control. He's got 2 hands to do sock puppets. And he's got Aaron Smith on this hand, and he's got Terrell Austin on this hand. Now, if he don't get his way 100%, you're not going to be around. Bruce Arians was not a sock puppet type of guy. There's been other guys, but they usually don't make it very long. They're not in there. They're not around.
Right.
And only that, you got the smallest coaching staff in the NFL. You got the lowest paid coaching staff in the NFL outside of the head coach. And then what do we talk about every week? Communication issues, fundamental issues, schematic issues. Guess what that falls on? That falls on the coaches. You have to be able to have the quality coaches and the quantity of coaches to teach what you're trying to accomplish. And you see the same mistakes over and over with a whole new cast of personnel. Whole new cast. There's hardly anybody left from 2019 or 2018. Think about it. And it's the same results. The only thing that changes is they get older and they're not as effective. TJ Watt isn't MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, MVP type TJ Watt anymore. And he won't ever be. Because now he's 31, 32, whatever. Cam Hayward, he's 35, 36. I mean, I wanted to see him go in and try to, change this dynamic, not depend on them guys so much, and maybe they could do something in the playoffs and give them some type of legacy. Because right now they don't got none.
Yeah, no, they don't. And I just hope they can turn it around. This game against the Packers that's upcoming, I think is a good game for the Steelers. In one way, you have Aaron Rodgers, who's somewhat familiar with what, the offense of the Green Bay Packers want to do. And you have a quarterback that's been there for a little bit that Tomlin can dissect and go through. You have an extended period of time. And so if the Steelers go out there against Green Bay at home in the new old uniforms and lay an egg again, I mean, I think that the Steelers fan base is going to get very impatient very quickly. What do you think?
With me, Daniel, I agree with you because we're past. I mean, I don't think we're being impatient. I think this is big going on for going on a decade since they won a playoff game, ain't it? Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
is that being impatient? A
No, that's
decade.
not.
I
That's
mean,
not.
it seemed like at least before there was an excuse. You hired a junior high offensive coordinator. You drafted a quarterback that was a good college quarterback, but he hasn't shown it in the NFL. Maybe you overdrafted him in a poor draft for quarterbacks. We see that now, but there was always an excuse. But the excuses kind of ended this year. They kind of went, and they've done a lot of the moves they've made. I think it's been good, and we've seen flashes from every guy. We haven't seen consistency though.
That's true.
And we haven't seen them being used schematically to the best of their abilities. Ramsey in the slot or safety is still a superior player. He's not as good one-on-one on the outside. But where do we keep seeing him? Now, sometimes it's because of injury. Sometimes it's because Slay might have finally lost that step that he can no longer do. We see him matched up against Chase was a complete mismatch.
He got burned by the tight end.
Yeah. I mean, so, who are you going to put him on? Who are you going to put him on? I mean, but what I'm saying is it's like they have to, somebody said they're doing all this stuff. They need to simplify and find out what can you do good. Find out something that does work and then build off of that. Because, I love Ramsey's versatility, but you got to have everybody else that can do their jobs where he can be versatile. You can move him around. And there's so many holes and so many issues. And if they come out again, like you said, at home with these uniforms they're going to be wearing, and it's a big game because everybody says, "Oh, Rodgers wants to kill the Packers." I understand that, but the Packers want to beat Rodgers really bad too.
Yeah,
and they would like nothing better to embarrass him in Pittsburgh. And if they do, who's to say that this ain't going to get ugly fast? Because Rodgers is not going to be happy if he gets embarrassed this week.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. Not only that, I don't think the fan base are. If the Steelers defense starts to lay an egg right away, the boo birds are going to come out right away. It's going to be out loud, and I just, like I said, I think the fan base is rightfully so tired of some of the things that we've been seeing, and the lack of progression, the lack of consistent progression. It's been, like you mentioned, very flashy, popcorn-like, where, one game the defense does well, the next game the offense does well. And, it's not conducive to good football. And
if this defense cannot get turnovers, and everybody's like, why does it matter how they win? It just matters if we win. No, it doesn't. You have to win fundamentally, showing improvement each week, building, momentum to head towards winning your division, winning in the playoffs.
right.
If turnovers come in bunches a lot of times, it's fluky. They've went 2 games in a row with no turnovers, and I guess Cleveland, that was a rookie quarterback, and it was Cleveland. But against a quality quarterback with weapons, no turnovers equals the defense we've seen all year, which is not good.
Yeah, no, you're right. I just hope they can turn it around. Like I said, I think this game here against Green Bay, Green Bay's not lighting it up either. You know what I'm saying? Now, a lot of people are going to be a little, and rightfully so, concerned. You got Michael Parsons coming in. He's going to be going up against, I would assume, Falatanu for the most part. That's going to be a good matchup to see. Defensively, the Green Bay Packers have some receivers. Yep. It's gonna, and they got a quarterback that can throw,
and a running game,
and they have a running game. I mean, this could be a situation where, I don't know, man. I'm concerned. I'm nervous. I'm not gonna lie, and I just hope they can turn it around. I guess I'm just saying that I'm frustrated and defeated by the performance that they had. It was a painful one to watch.
Oh, it hurt. Like I said, after the game, and then the next that night, and then the next morning I was able to get away, and I didn't think about the Steelers. I didn't think about football.
Yeah.
And then of course you got to come back, and so now we're back, and then today, um, I've heard people, again, get a wide receiver too. The offense is actually unique.
Yeah.
They're running an offense nobody uses. It's kind of like, you remember when they, not the wishbone, but the, I swear I can't think of what you call it. The, uh,
High formation split.
no, it's everybody started doing it. Miami started doing it first. This has been 15, 20 years ago. But anyway, you've had everything. You have the run and shoot. You have, uh, you have the spread offenses. There's always the first team to do something, and it's a copycat league, and everybody tries to copy.
Right.
Well, the Steelers are unique on their own right now because they're running the heavy packages. They're running the 13 personnel. They're, the quick pass, and they're not attacking downfield much at all. But they're built off of that. They found that it works, especially when the offensive line was sucking so bad earlier. So, I'm encouraged by that. I think that one of the least problems they have is wide receiver too.
Mhm.
And if we're going to be honest, Roman Wilson made a few plays. Now, a couple of them didn't count because of a penalty but
Right.
the dude made some plays. I think he just needs some more opportunities. Because you are going to get Calvin Austin back. You just don't want to sell the cow or sell the farm to get the milk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that some of the guys they're looking at would be pretty pricey, and I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah, and Calvin Austin is coming back.
Yeah.
He's going to be back. He's
maybe this week.
I'm expecting. Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be this week. It sounded like he was a possibility. Of participating in practice the last couple of games, and so I think there's a good chance that he comes back this week. If he does, I mean, I think you're right about Roman Wilson. I thought he flashed a little bit. I thought he did well catching the ball. He looked quick. He looked like he had quite a bit of burst. Do you just throw in Calvin in there all the way in, or do you start to feed Roman Wilson a little bit more than what we've seen him up to this point?
I like his effort. I like his effort in the running game. He's intense. I like when he gets the ball. I mean, he's kind of like Caleb Johnson earlier this year. When them two guys are so hyped up and so excited that, Wilson tried to hurdle that guy. We actually did hurdle the guy and tried to get that first down. And, just springy and just explosive. You could just see that he has that ability. You got to work him into that rotation because we know what Scotty Miller is at this point in his career, but we don't know what Roman Wilson can be. And you just need, especially if Freiermuth starts contributing, we're getting Mount Washington, you got Metcalf, you got Jonnu. If you can work, and you got the receivers, the running backs who are actually good receivers in Warren and Gainwell. If you can work Wilson in there and he gets 3 or 4 targets a game, I don't see that's not the Steelers' problem right now. The problem is not so much points; it's they can't stop nobody.
Yeah. This game being against the Green Bay Packers and a former team of Aaron Rodgers, kind of like the Jets game. He put up 4 touchdowns. I think it was a statement game for Aaron. I think this is going to be another statement game. If he does this, he becomes one of a handful of quarterbacks that has beaten all 32 NFL teams.
Yep.
And he'll tell you too that he's beaten some teams that no longer exist as well. And he's absolutely right on that.
Yeah.
And so when you play as long as he has, you go against some of those teams like that. And so, I'm expecting this to be a heavy throwing game. What do you think? Do you think they're going to feed into that, or do you think that Rodgers has it in him to take a step back? Because, I mean, if I'm thinking this, and I'm sure Green Bay's probably thinking, hey, this guy wants to put it to us. He wants to be the reason why the Steelers beat the Green Bay Packers. do you think he takes a step back and allows the running game to be the focal point as as something that maybe just to try to play that 3D chess?
Personally, watching Rodgers, I feel like he's bought in.
Yeah,
I think he wants to win in Pittsburgh. I think that the Steelers have had Terry Bradshaw, Hall of Fame quarterback. They've had Big Ben, future Hall of Fame quarterback. They got Aaron Rodgers now, who's future Hall of Fame quarterback. He wants to be in that legacy.
right.
He had no legacy in New York. That was just wasted 2 years. His legacy is Green Bay. But there he was Green Bay, and it was Favre and Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
Now you look at Tom Brady, you look at Peyton Manning. They had success in Super Bowls at 2 places. And I think Rodgers wants to be talked about that way. And I think he would love to have a real successful career at the end here in Pittsburgh. So I think he will want the Steelers to establish the run and to still see this progress that we've seen over the last few weeks out of this offensive line. I mean, we've seen Fautanu, who's becoming, in my opinion, one of the best right tackles in football. I think McCormick has took a step forward this year. Frazier's in the top 3 centers in the NFL already. And,
Yeah.
You see that. You got Stamalu, who's towards the end, but Anderson's showing, in my opinion, that he might be the left guard of the future. And then you have Broderick Jones, who was trash earlier in the year, but he just keeps playing better.
Yeah.
And that's what I want, Daniel. I want a little step forward each game. No more step back. Just keep taking that small baby steps. What about Bob? I don't know if anybody's seen the movie, but it's baby steps.
Yeah.
And Broderick Jones is taking baby steps, and he's becoming, hopefully, the left tackle of the future.
I agree.
I think Rodgers, it would behoove him to let that offensive line, get physical and continue to develop, continue to wear on Parsons and this Green Bay defense, because they got a heck of a pass rush if they get ahead and they turn that pass rush loose. And we don't want to see that happen to Rodgers. So I think Rodgers will be fine, and then he can work play action off of a successful running game.
Yeah. I mean, that's his best game, his play action. So I'm all for it, and this this running game came alive against the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think they've been taking those steps that you're talking, much bigger than baby steps for the running backs there. I think that Jaylen Warren is coming in on his own. I think that he's he's solidifying the ability to be the main back. He's not going to be the bell cow, and they're going to sprinkle in the other guys. But those guys too, it's not a big drop.
They got 3 of them. Yeah.
And you want to see what you have in Caleb Johnson. I know we didn't see much of him against the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think I guess it's because they were trying to get back to, some sort of rhythm and go with what was working.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to see a little bit of Caleb Johnson in this upcoming game against Green Bay?
It'll depend on how the offensive line is performing. I mean, if they're, if it's a lot of the maybe the trap plays, the quicker hitters, I think they'll stick with Warren. And if they start to develop, impose their will a little bit, get physical, where they're having some success getting outside, I think that we might see Gainwell and even some Johnson sprinkled in. Because I'd like to see them they've been severely, I don't want to say outplayed, is not the word. The time of possession, the defense can't get off the field. Right. So if the Steelers have a 3 and out here and there, they lose time of possession by a large margin. Like you said, 70 plays to 50 or something. I think it's about the average for them. They're giving up like 20 to 25 more plays against than they run. I'd like to see them flip that and at least have it even this week.
Yeah.
And the only way they're going to do that is some sustained drives with some success in the running game.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do that, there would be some more plays in there for Johnson to get a few carries.
Yeah, no, it'd be good to see him, but it's also good to see when things are working. You don't want to fix something that's not broke. So it's a fine line that you have to, tiptoe there for Mike Tomlin and the personnel decisions. Well, what do you got going on this week there, Shannon?
Well, of course, we have our usual Pub Your Breaks at 8:00.
Yeah.
With me and Brother Tate and Big G. So definitely tune in Wednesday at 8, and we'll try to talk through all this some more. And I'd been picking them to lose, and it had worked 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
And then I had to, I stuck with it though. I picked them to lose, but it went off. I think what happens is we had too many jinx. It's kind of like the Austin Powers.
Yeah.
The mojo.
Yeah.
He had this mojo, my mojo going, trying to pick up the loose so they'd win. And we had other people guaranteeing, like My Little Pony or Philip Pony, and other people picking them. I guarantee they're going to win. If they're going to win, if they lose, I'll get my nipples pierced. I heard some crazy stuff. So we had some negative mojo, and it counteracted my positive mojo. And we ended up with just bad mojo, and we lost.
That's too much mojo.
Too much mojo. Yes.
Overfilled causes a problem. For me, guys, I'll be back on the State of the Steelers on Saturday. We'll be previewing the upcoming matchup, the Sunday night matchup against the Green Bay Packers, the revenge game for Aaron Rodgers 2.0 for the second game this year. You guys don't want to miss it. Appreciate everybody here. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell, check out the website. With that being said, Shannon, take us out, my man.